Major breaking news. We're interrupting that report. Jeff Zeleny, our senior White House correspondent, is joining us on the future of the FBI director. What are you learning?
A major development here this evening at the White House. The President of the United States has terminated the director of the FBI, James Comey. I talked to White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer a few moments ago. He has just released this statement. Wolf, let me read it along with you here. It says, today, President Donald J. Trump informed FBI Director James Comey that he has been terminated and removed from office. President Trump acted based on the clear recommendations of both Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein and Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Quote, the FBI is one of our nation's most cherished and respected institutions. Today will mark a new beginning for a crown jewel of law enforcement. A search for a new director is beginning as we speak here, Wolf. But interestingly, Wolf, this is coming on the exact day that James Comey had to clarify those comments. No one was expecting this at all, and a letter was given at the FBI, sent from here, the White House, over to the FBI just a short time ago, within the last probably 15 or 20 minutes or so, Wolf. So this is just coming in. We do not have reaction yet from the FBI, but this is just happening now. Of course, this is coming on the heels of the FBI director being, so central involved in this Russian scandal. Excuse my breath here, Wolf. I just ran out here to bring you this news. So as we get more here, we'll bring it to you. But at this point, a bombshell at the White House. James Comey is out.
Yeah, he was serving a 10-year appointment as the FBI director, 10 years, and now the President of the United States has effectively fired him. Let me read once again the statement from the White House. Today, President Donald J. Trump informed FBI Director James Comey that he has been terminated and removed from office. President Trump acted based on the clear recommendation of both Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein and Attorney General Jeff Sessions. The White House statement adds, the FBI is one of our nation's most cherished and respected institutions, and today will mark a new beginning for our crown jewel of law enforcement. That's a quote. That's a quote directly in the statement from the President, President Trump. A search for a new permanent FBI director will begin immediately. Pamela Brown's our justice correspondent. This is obviously a major development and certainly comes, I think it's fair to say, as a surprise.
It certainly does. Wolf, I can tell you anyone who covers the justice beat or anyone who is in our business or even outside is really shocked by this announcement coming from the White House that James Comey, the director of the FBI, has indeed been fired on the recommendation of the Attorney General and Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General. And the question is, what exactly prompted this? Of course, this comes the same day that he is under fire for his testimony on Capitol Hill in the last several days, where he erroneously stated that Huma Abedin forwarded thousands of emails to her husband, which was, they had to clarify the record. But this comes as a complete shock. James Comey has been really in the center of this political firestorm for months now, Wolf. And I've been asking people close to him whether he's ever thought of resigning, given all the controversy, first with the Hillary Clinton investigation. And then, of course, as we know, he came on and announced the investigation into Trump campaign associates and Russians. And as you'll recall, when President Trump announced or tweeted that he believed President Obama was wiretapping his phone, James Comey was the one that went to the Department of Justice and wanted to knock down that claim publicly. And so I've asked people around him whether he was concerned he would be fired or whether he wanted to resign. And what I've always been told is that he knew this would be a possibility, given the fact that he has really been in the center of this firestorm, but that he had no intention of leaving his job, that he loved his job at the FBI. He's only been at this post for a few years. Of course, he was appointed by President Obama. He's someone who loved his job. He said that I've been told by his friends and close associates that, again, he knew it was a possibility. It didn't keep him up at night. But this big question is, what prompted this today? I think, it was hard to believe that it was just his testimony on Capitol Hill about the emails that he erroneously talked about. I mean, it does make you think that there's something more here that we just don't know. Of course, we've reached out to the FBI and to the Justice Department to learn more about this, Wolf.
Yeah, and it's an amazing development, I must say. I want to quickly go back to Jeff Zeleny over at the White House. The FBI director, now the former FBI director, James Comey. Jeff, he managed over these past several months to irritate Democrats and Republicans with various decisions he made. We know that the FBI, he confirmed not that long ago, the FBI since July has been engaged in a criminal investigation into any alleged connections between Trump associates and Russia. That investigation presumably continuing, but still, despite the irritation of the president, despite the irritation of Hillary Clinton, he stayed on, and now all of a sudden, following these late-breaking developments, he has been fired. This is a major development.
It certainly is, Wolf. And again, as Pamela was reporting, no one saw this coming at all. And let's be precise. I said terminated earlier, reading the language from the White House. He was fired. Make no mistake about it. This FBI director was fired. And this was someone, I mean, this is the height of all irony, perhaps, Wolf. That's the only word that I can really grasp to think at this moment. He was someone who, of course, played an outsized role in the general election here, and now he's someone who is also, heading this investigation of any potential conflicts, between the Trump campaign and any Russian operatives. So by firing the FBI director, will that end the investigations? I cannot imagine the reaction from Capitol Hill on this, Wolf. This is going to be extraordinary in every sense of the word here. But I'm still thinking back to those early days of this administration when James Comey, who is a towering figure at he's about 6'8" or so, 6'7" perhaps. He even towers over the president, who's quite tall. He was stood with the president in the Blue Room of the White House when the president said he still had confidence in him, and the president was very pleased at James Comey at that point. Now, he doesn't necessarily believe that he helped him win the campaign last year. Certainly Democrats believe that. But James Comey is someone who, of course, appointed by our last president, President Obama, but was a Republican. Of course, was a major figure in the Bush administration as well here. So to have this Republican president, President Trump, firing the FBI director in the middle of all this, Wolf, this certainly will not cause this to go away. This will certainly just fan more flames, create more opportunities for places to look here as this investigation widens and deepens here, Wolf. We are not getting any sense of exactly who will be the replacement of who is going to be overseeing the things at the FBI, Wolf, but we are going to get a copy within moments, I'm told, of a copy of a letter the president sent to him that we believe was hand delivered this afternoon to the FBI. We'll try and get that to you and get back to you shortly, Wolf.
Stand by for a moment. Evan Perez is with us as well. Evan, you cover the FBI for us. You cover the Justice Department. This is a shock.
It certainly is, Wolf, because essentially the fact that he is leading this investigation into Trump-Russia connections, it was seen that he was frankly untouchable. It is when he made that announcement in March at a hearing here in Capitol Hill, where he announced that there was this ongoing investigation, not only looking at the broader Trump-Russia issue, but also looking into whether or not there was coordination between people associated with the campaign and the Russian government. It really cemented the issue that this was something that made him untouchable, at least until this investigation was over. Now, there's a lot of criticism into how he has handled some of the disclosures, not only during the Clinton email investigation last year, whether he should have revealed as much as he did. There's been a lot of criticism, but he seemed untouchable until now.
In the statement that we got from the White House, the president acted based on the clear recommendation of both the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein and the Attorney General Jeff Sessions. But Jeff Sessions had recused himself from any involvement in the Russia investigation. And Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, who's confirmed overwhelmingly he's in charge.
Right, exactly. And we don't know exactly what occurred here. We know that that Comey certainly was under a lot of criticism for the way he handled the testimony last week, in which he misstated exactly what had happened with Huma Abedin's emails. Today, he issued a correction of that testimony with a letter to members of Congress, but certainly we don't know Rod Rosenstein just started overseeing this investigation just now, less than a week.
Right.
And for now, him to play a role in getting rid of James Comey, there's got to be a lot more to
Hold on one moment. Jeff Zeleny, I understand you have the letter?
Indeed, Wolf. We have the pretty brief letter from the president sent this afternoon over to the FBI. Let me read just a couple very interesting portions of this letter. It says, I have accepted the recommendations that you are hereby terminated and removed from office effective immediately. He's talking about the recommendations from his own attorney general and the deputy attorney general. But Wolf, listen to this second paragraph of the letter. It says, while I greatly appreciate you informing me on 3 separate occasions that I am not under investigation, I nevertheless, with the judgment of the Department of Justice, that you are not able to effectively lead the Bureau. It is essential that we find new leadership of the FBI that restores public trust and confidence in its vital law enforcement mission. Wolf, again, let me underscore the fact that the President of the United States, in a letter dismissing the FBI director, he thanked him for saying on 3 separate times that I am not personally under investigation, and then said that he has lost the trust and confidence here in the FBI director. Wolf, that's a very extraordinary circumstance comment to have in that letter there. But look, in reality here is someone that Donald Trump, President Trump nominated the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. He is recommending the firing of the FBI director. So it's very much an inside job, if you will, here. The FBI director does serve at the pleasure of the president, of course, but the terms are staggered over multiple administrations for 10 years to avoid any direct type of a politics here. As we see all this unfold, we will, of course, be sort of dissecting this more. But key that President Trump mentioned in this letter that James Comey said that the president was not directly the target of this investigation.
But Pamela,
Assessment.
Yes.
Do you believe that WikiLeaks has released sensitive and classified information?
Yes.
Do you believe any of WikiLeaks' disclosures have endangered American lives and or put at risk American interests?
I believe both have been the result of some of their releases.
Can you help me understand why Julian Assange has not been charged with a crime?
Well, I don't want to comment on the particular case because I don't want to confirm whether or not there are charges pending. He hasn't been apprehended because he's inside the Ecuadorian embassy in London.
I sent a letter to the Attorney General a number of weeks ago asking questions about the status of the investigation, and it seemed pretty clear, though individuals were polite and kind and responsive to our request, it seemed that across the IC there wasn't much deliberation about WikiLeaks and about Julian Assange. And this question, is the FBI participating in any interagency dialogue about whether or not Assange has committed crimes?
I don't know where you got that impression, but WikiLeaks is an important focus of our attention.
I intentionally left almost half of my time for you to sort of wax broadly for a minute. There is room for reasonable people to disagree about at what point an allegedly journalistic organization crosses a line to become some sort of a tool of foreign intelligence. There are Americans, well-meaning, thoughtful people who think that WikiLeaks might just be a journalistic outfit. Can you explain why that is not your view?
Yeah, and again, I want to be careful that I don't prejudice any future proceeding. It's an important question because all of us care deeply about the First Amendment and the ability of a free press to get information about our work and publish it. To my mind, it crosses a line when it moves from being about trying to educate a public and instead just becomes about intelligence porn, frankly, just pushing out information about sources and methods without regard to interest, without regard to the First Amendment values that normally underlie press reporting, and simply becomes a conduit for the Russian intelligence services or some other adversary of the United States just to push out information to damage the United States. And I realize reasonable people, as you said, struggle to draw a line, but surely there's conduct that's so far to the side of that line that we can all agree there's nothing that even smells journalist about some of this conduct.
So if you could map that continuum, there are clearly members of the IC that have at different points in the past leaked classified information. That is an illegal act, correct?
Correct.
When American journalists court and solicit that information, have they violated any law by asking people in the IC to potentially leak to leak information that is potentially classified.
That conduct is not treated by the U.S. government as criminal conduct. Now, I've been asked in other contexts, isn't it true that the espionage statute has no carve-out for journalists? That's true. But at least in my lifetime, the Department of Justice's view has been news gathering and legitimate news reporting is not covered, is not going to be investigated or prosecuted as a criminal act. That's how it's thought of.
So an investigative reporter taking advantage of and celebrating the liberties that we have under the First Amendment at the Washington Post or at the Omaha World Herald or at the Lincoln Journal-Star or at the New York Times, trying to talk to people in the IC and get the maximum amount of information that they possibly can out of them to inform the public. It is not the burden of an American journalist to discern whether or not the member of the IC is leaking information that might be classified. The journalist can legitimately seek information, and it's not their job to police it. The member of the US IC that leaks classified information has broken a law.
Right. The clear legal obligation rests on those people who are in the government in possession of intelligence, classified information. It's not the journalist's burden.
Okay.
Our focus is and should be on the leakers, not those that are obtaining it as part of legitimate news gathering.
So I want to hear this part one more time, and I know that the chairman has indulged me. I'm at and past time, but the American journalist who's seeking this information differs from Assange and WikiLeaks how?
In that there's at least a portion, and people can argue that maybe this conduct WikiLeaks has engaged in the past that's closer to regular news gathering, but in my view, a huge portion of WikiLeaks' activities has nothing to do with legitimate news gathering, informing the public, commenting on important public controversies, but is simply about releasing classified information to damage the United States of America. And people sometimes get cynical about journalists. American journalists do not do that. They will almost always call us before they publish classified information and say, is there anything about this that's going to put lives in danger, that's going to jeopardize government people, military people, or innocent civilians anywhere in the world, and then work with us to try and accomplish their important First Amendment goals while safeguarding those interests. This activity I'm talking about, WikiLeaks, involves no such considerations whatsoever. It's what I said to intelligence porn. Just push it out in order to damage.
Thank you.
Director, I have one question regarding my opening comment, and I view it as a most important question, and I hope you will answer it. Why was it necessary to announce 11 days before a presidential election that you were opening an investigation on a new computer without any knowledge of what was in that computer? Why didn't you just do the investigation as you would normally with no public announcement?
Yeah, great question, Senator. Thank you. October 27th, the investigative team that had finished the investigation in July, focused on Secretary Clinton's emails, asked to meet with me. So I met with them that morning, late morning, in my conference room, and they laid out for me what they could see from the metadata on this fella Anthony Weiner's laptop that had been seized in an unrelated case. What they could see from the metadata was that there were thousands of Secretary Clinton's emails on that device, including what they thought might be the missing emails from her first 3 months as Secretary of State. We never found any emails from her first 3 months. She was using a Verizon BlackBerry then, and that's obviously very important because if there was evidence that she was acting with bad intent, that's where it would be in the first 3 months.
But they weren't there.
Look, can I just finish my answer, Senator?
Yeah.
And so they came in and said, we can see thousands of emails from the Clinton email domain, including many, many, many from the Verizon Clinton domain, BlackBerry domain. They said, we think we got to get a search warrant to go get these. And the Department of Justice agreed we had to go get a search warrant. So I agreed. I authorized them to seek a search warrant. And then I faced a choice. And I've lived my entire career by the tradition that if you can possibly avoid it, you avoid any action in the run-up to an election that might have an impact, whether it's a dog catcher election or President of the United States. But I sat there that morning, and I could not see a door labeled no action here. I could see two doors, and they were both actions. One was labeled speak, the other was labeled conceal. Because here's how I thought about it. I'm not trying to talk you into this, but I want you to know my thinking. Having repeatedly told this Congress, we are done and there's nothing there, there's no case there, there's no case there, to restart in a hugely significant way, potentially finding the emails that would reflect on her intent from the beginning and not speak about it would require an act of concealment, in my view. And so I stared at speak and conceal. Speak would be really bad. There's an election in 11 days. Lordy, that would be really bad. Concealing, in my view, would be catastrophic. not just to the FBI, but well beyond. And honestly, as between really bad and catastrophic, I said to my team, we've got to walk into the world of really bad. I've got to tell Congress that we're restarting this, not in some frivolous way, in a hugely significant way. And the team also told me, we cannot finish this work before the election. And then they worked night after night after night, and they found thousands of new emails. They found classified information on Anthony Weiner. Somehow, her emails are being forwarded to Anthony Weiner, including classified information by her assistant, Huma Abedin. And so they found thousands of new emails and then called me the Saturday night before the election and said, thanks to the wizardry of our technology, we've only had to personally read 6,000. We think we can finish tomorrow morning, Sunday. And so I met with them. And they said, we found a lot of new stuff. We did not find anything that changes our view of her intent. So we're in the same place we were in July. It hasn't changed our view. And I asked them lots of questions. And I said, okay, if that's where you are, then I also have to tell Congress that we're done. Look, this was terrible. It makes me mildly nauseous to think that we might have had some impact on the election. But honestly, it wouldn't change the decision. Everybody who disagrees with me has to come back to October 28th with me and stare at this and tell me what you would do. Would you speak or would you conceal? And I could be wrong, but we honestly made a decision between those two choices that even in hindsight, and this has been one of the world's most painful experiences, I would make the same decision. I would not conceal that on October 28th from the Congress. And I sent a letter to Congress. By the way, people forget this. I didn't make a public announcement. I sent a private letter to the chairs and the rankings of the oversight committees. I know it's a distinction without a difference in the world of leaks, but it was very important that I tell them instead of concealing. And reasonable people can disagree, but that's the reason I made that choice. And it was a hard choice. I still believe in retrospect the right choice, as painful as this has been. And I'm sorry for the long answer.
Well, let me respond. On the letter, it was just a matter of minutes before the world knew about it. Secondly,